Right, back with you tonight. The Nigerian government says more than 60 people have been killed in a wave of attacks across the north of the country. More than 30 villagers died in a raid by militants in the Kaduna State. Criminal gangs attacked 5 towns and set fire on military camps in Sokoto. Also in the northwest, they killed 17 members of the security forces and 2 civilians. In the northeastern state of Borno, more soldiers were killed when suspected militants fired rockets at their convoy. And for more on that story, I'm joined by Tiniola Teo, a researcher with the Institute of Security Studies. She joins me now from Abuja in Nigeria. Tiniola, good to have you with us tonight. It looks like security forces were attacked in rather mysterious circumstances. What is behind this attack?
Well, nowadays it's not very clear what is behind the attacks. We've been having very disparate attacks in the northwest and in the north central. We don't even know exactly how to name some of the groups that are carrying out these attacks. We were using the term bandits and sometimes use the term unknown gunmen. So I think that we still have a lot of work to do in terms of trying to identify these groups and then to better understand what is motivating them to carry out these attacks.
Now, troops coming under fire, and of course they have responded. Have any of the militants been arrested?
At this point, we're not sure, but that is not usually the case. And in these situations, it's not usually about arresting them. There's usually retaliation where, some of these perpetrators are killed. That's usually more likely what happens. Like some weeks ago when there was an attack on the Defense Academy and I think one of the state officials was kidnapped. It was rather a retaliatory response from the military.
Now, the militaries are one saying that they've got 2 suspects that are being questioned right now. I mean, what do you know about that?
So, there's not a lot of information now in the public domain about that. But then I guess we're waiting to hear more about, what these suspects are telling them and what that can help us understand with the reasons behind these attacks. And it's a problem with these groups, right? We have one term for them and we have one idea of what they're looking for. When we're referring to them as bandits and when they were just carrying out kidnappings, it was clearer that maybe it was more of an economic incentive. But with these varying kinds of attacks, it's now not as clear exactly what they're looking for and really who may be behind these groups and just what may be behind their actions. Yeah.
Could these be the same groups that have been carrying out kidnappings for financial purposes, trying to get ransom, particularly with those kidnappings?
That is a problem. So when you have a large pool of people that are restive and that have already gotten a taste for crime in that sense, they can be instrumentalized in many different ways. So it's not impossible that there are intersections between the different groups. It's not impossible that there are similar groups. It's not impossible that there are separate groups. But then again, that's the points that I was trying to make, that we haven't done the work that we need to do in trying to properly identify these groups and knowing who is operating where properly and just really understanding who is behind the attacks in the way that we need to. We had in the south as well, the southern Nigeria, we had a lot of situations with unknown gunmen as well attacking security forces. But then again, a lot of obfuscation there. We're not sure exactly who is behind these attacks. So yes, that's one thing that we definitely need to do, in order to better respond to the challenge.
How has the state responded? Have they put in some restrictions on movement?
They've been putting restrictions on movement. I know there was a time when they also they shut down the telephone network services. There was a time when they even shut down some markets in order to close supply lines to some of these actors. So yes, they've been trying to respond in many different ways. Unfortunately, some of the measures that they're putting in place is also affecting, regular people. In this areas, you have people that are already very vulnerable, very marginalized from the center. So that is one challenge. But then, I guess it's a very fast evolving situation. And the last time that they put in some measures, they did claim, or they did say that they recorded some gains because of the measures that they put in place. For example, when they blocked some of the markets, there was a claim that a lot of these bandits in quotes, were returning the victims that they had kidnapped because they could not afford to feed them anymore, and that all they wanted was to get food for themselves to eat. So we're really keeping an eye on the way things are evolving. But then I think at our level, we're trying to really better understand what is going on, like I keep saying, because that's the only way that you can start to get to the root of this challenge.
Yeah. What is the impact then on the citizens? Are you seeing a number of those who are fleeing, being displaced? What's the impact on the ground?
Yes, people are getting displaced internally, but then sometimes even across borders, and you see more movements towards the south. So, for example, I live in Abuja. Abuja is also a northern state, technically. It's in the north central, so you see a lot of displacements in this direction. You even see a lot of displacements, further south, because people are trying to leave, right? So people are trying to find better lives for themselves. The impact of that sometimes when you have displacements within the northern region and in a situation where you already have resource conflicts in some areas, you can have issues between, say, the host communities and the displaced persons. So you now have a secondary conflict emerging from whatever conflict caused them to leave their places in the first place. So yes, we're seeing more and more displacements within the northern region, but also outside the northern region to other parts of Nigeria. But mostly it's a loss of lives and livelihoods. Someone had their life, they had their farm, they were trying to make things as best as they could, but now everything has been taken away from them. They are forced to start from scratch, or maybe to depend on the state, or depend on charity or humanitarian workers. And then sometimes it even creates an opportunity for them to also be instrumentalized by groups or groups with more criminal intent. So it's sort of like exacerbating the problem in many different ways.
Yeah. Now, previously, of course, we had the chat around particularly the security issues in Nigeria, and the president, they're announcing new leadership for the security forces. The security forces reporting that they've repelled this attack on time. Could this be signs of an improvement in the security forces and how they're responding to these bandits?
I would say that it seems like there has been some improvements in the response, in terms of a quicker response. So, again, it's a very fast-moving situation, and we're still tracking it very closely. We usually try to hesitate to make categorical statements about exactly what is going on. But I would say that we've observed a quicker response, even sometimes with the kidnappings. The kidnappings are still going on very much, but we've seen some situations where there was a response, and then a particular kidnapping attempt was repelled by the security forces. But we do think that there needs to be more intelligence, gathering, and intelligence can only come from the communities, or proper intelligence can only come from the communities. But one challenge we have now is that the communities are in the middle of, say, the states and the criminal elements, so they don't really see themselves as being aligned with the states because on some level, they sometimes are also victimized, by the states. But if we can, then it's sort of like a united front of Nigerians against everyone that is trying to cause problems for the country.
Tiniola Teo, appreciate your time and thank you very much for joining us tonight from the Institute of Security Studies. She's live for us in Abuja, in Nigeria, reporting on that situation that is ongoing.